start, would like you to introduce yourself. Maybe we can start with Mr. Timitayo. Like, how did you get to where you are now, sir? As the director of global information security at Adidas, how was your journey to this stage? How did you get into tech? Did you always know you were going to be a tech person from school? By the way, he was my senior colleague in school. Was in computer engineering. But please, sir, introduce yourself, and then Mr. Tega too. You'd also introduce yourself. Thank you, sirs.
Thanks very much for having me, and hello to everyone that has joined and that is also listening in. My name is Temitayo, but I think majority of people call me Tayo. My journey so far, I think I know I was always interested in taking things apart as a little kid, back in the days where we still had stereos and radios, and also the holding the televisions and the likes. So there was always an interest in tech. But obviously shaping that over the years in terms of high secondary school education and also university education, a lot of interest then came into information security in my early days of software development. And obviously also with a lot of guidance. I think that's also key, which is one of the reasons why I'm already a big fan of mentorship programs like this, where you have direct or indirect mentors, if you understand what I mean. And I think that's really just shaped me into where I am today, pretty much built on relationship, because I think that's also one of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So that's really my journey so far, personal interest, but at the same time, having the right relationships with the right people, either directly or indirectly. And I'm looking forward to us dissecting that further in today's conversation. So I would say that's a little bit summary about myself. You already mentioned it. I lead the security engineering operations team within Adidas, and that's from a career perspective. So I would say that's me in a nutshell, and also my interest and how I've been able to get to where I am today.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Over to you, Mr. Tega.
Okay, I think we can do away with the Mr. I don't think
Or
that's
Mrs.
necessary.
These days we need to be careful about the pronouns and
Yeah,
okay.
just Tega is fine actually. I think I'm not positioned well for the camera. No, don't know where. Okay, let me move this way. Yeah. So my journey, if I'm being honest, I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, but Nigeria and UTM, it became a trouble trying to get into university for reasons that I'm not going to go into. But during that same period, I was also doing the usual computer classes that people take where you go to learn MS Word, Excel and all that stuff. And I really excelled at that. And then my elder brother, who was in the UI then, when he got home one of the holidays, he told me that he has a lot of friends in school that were computer science students, and they did interesting stuff. He was studying physics, but he had friends in computer science, and he told me that they do stuff that I could find interesting. And so when I wrote my next jam, then I, applied for computer science as my first choice and industrial and production engineering as my second choice, because mechanical engineering was just not working. But luckily, I got into school. So basically, from university, I already knew what I was going to do. And that's where my journey started from. Did my first internship in 2010, built an SMS portal. Then I was like jack of all trades, doing front end, back end, everything, anywhere my hand got to. But I was lucky to have a manager who was able to quickly identify where my strength was, which was back end engineering. So as early as after my internship, then I already knew I was going to be a back end engineer. It was pretty clear. So right from 2011, after I left school, it was pure backend since then. And of course, I got a stint with Conga, and then I came to Europe. I did some work as well in a couple of companies until I found myself in Delivery Hero. So I don't want to tell all the stories, but that's like a summary of how the journey has been for me. But I've been a backend engineer ever since. I'm still a backend engineer today. Unfortunately, I don't know anything about front end, which is really sad to say. I mean, I know the technology, but I don't know how to use them. So yeah, that's how it's been for me. I guess as time goes on, we would have opportunity to share more details about each of these experiences, right? So let me not go into those now.
Okay.
But Thanks again.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for coming. So, for those just joining us, our topic today is leveraging 360-degree relationships for a successful career. But then, my first question would be, what are the possible benefits of having a strong or having strong professional relationships? Why should we even be interested in like developing or maintaining professional relationships in tech career? What benefits? What do I stand to gain? Can't I just do my work and get to work 8 o'clock, finish, close my bag, and be coming home, mind my business? Saturday rest, Sunday I rest, Monday again we start again. Why do I need to network? Why do I need to um, develop professional relationships? I think I'll start with Mr. Temitayo.
Okay, thanks very much. I mean, that's a very valid question and also a very good question. I think you already gave insights into the approach to think about it for the people that are listening, because I think one of the fundamental traits of human beings is relationship and interaction. If not, I mean, robots would have replaced us time ago. I know there are science fiction movies that are trying to push the narrative that will be replaced by robots, but one of the fundamentals of human nature is interaction. And in terms of there, you can always get the different benefits. And then speaking specifically from a career perspective, your networking capability would really determine, first of all, how much you can know, and also second of all, how far you can go from a career perspective. Because it gets to a certain level where the likes of referrals would always come in,
Mhm.
and that is really based on the people that you know, and also how far you have shown that you are valuable. Because it's one thing for you to know the right people, is another thing for you to be valued to them as well. So I think for me, the core, or some of the core benefits of building and cultivating a professional relationship is really focusing on networking for opportunities. That's the fundamental one. You also have mentorship and guidance, because you cannot be a man that would build a whole island by yourself. You need support system around you. So even if you claim to be the best in class, you still need people challenging you or pointing you in the right direction.
Mm.
In terms of knowledge sharing also, because I believe every professional, you would know that at one point in time in your career, you've needed to share the brain of someone else, just to rub minds, just to rub off of each other. That's also one of it. In terms of also problem solving, which is also part of it, where you can be given a task and you have people that you can run to and work with to really solve the problem. So I think the list is never ending in terms of the benefits of building professional relationship. But I think the core ones are really the networking for opportunities, mentorship, knowledge sharing, and also problem solving.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Because I was taking notes. So you said job referrals for opportunities, like job opportunities, knowledge sharing, problem solving, and mentorship. That brings me to like I've been a beneficiary of this, and so that means for someone listening, what he's trying to say is that you should not just stick to just minding your business at work, or you attend an event and you're just the traffic. They said I should come. They said I should attend an event. I'm here. I've taken attendance. Off I go. So, sir, Mr. Tega, I don't know if you want to add to what he has said, or you feel he has covered everything.
I think I basically had 2 points, and what he said already covers most of it already. I had healthy competition. Sometimes when you build such relationships, you'd realize that there are always things that you don't know, but sometimes it takes someone else to let you know that you don't know those things, right?
Mm,
So, and that's when he mentioned something about trying to get yourself to become better, or you learn, or you share knowledge sharing. So during knowledge sharing sessions with people, for example, you will hear things that you probably did not know, and that way you become it piques your curiosity. I also have growth and exposure as one of the things that
mm,
relationships would give to you. I can speak from a personal experience perspective, because over over the course of my career, I would say the things that have nudged me the most are the friends that I always associate myself with. And I call them friends because most times the relationships I build are with my friends that are in the same field with me. So I talk to my friends and they say, I'm working on this stuff, and then I'm interested in in what they are doing, and I ask questions, and from there I'm also interested. And these are the things that have helped me grow over time. So he said most of it, but those are just the things I'm going to add.
Okay, okay. So still with Mr. Tega, in addition to conferences and maybe colleagues and all, are there other places or where else can we like, let's say, cultivate this kind of relationships? And then how do I even start? Maybe, for example, I'm in it's not my office now. No office, you are always there, Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. At least you are sitting down in front of someone, or you are working with someone on a project. You have no choice but to always interact. But then, if I'm attending an event, for example, how do I like build this relationship? How do I start? Do I just compliment someone? What's the strategy? Because techies are known to be introverts. They just like to face their front and do their work. So, do you have any tips? How do you manage such?
Yeah, I wanted to say if you want to talk to me directly. Don't go through the corners. I'm one of those that you would call introverts, but if I'm being honest, it doesn't help to be an introvert always. If you go to a conference and you're an introvert, you would not get the best out of that conference because all you would do is listen and probably write things down. You would not get to share ideas with people. You will not get to learn from people. You will not get to share contacts with people. So if you're the type that doesn't really talk, you would have to learn to do that. You would have to learn to start up conversations. It could be as simple as, "Hi, my name is Tega. I'm from Delivery Hero. In my company right now, we're working on this technology. What are you guys doing? Is there something new you're working on in your company?" Strike up that conversation, and before you know what's happening, you're changing contact with people that might be the next, might be the person between your current position and your next position, right?
Yeah.
So if you go for a conference, you would have to talk to people. I am one of those who don't like going to conferences because, of course, I don't like to talk much. I just want to learn on my own and learn amongst my friends. But I've had to come out of that shell. And recently, I went for a conference, and the amount of things I gained in that conference, it was enormous because I spoke to a lot of people that came from different fields. You know, people talking about, of course, AI is the big thing in town. So the
Yes.
conference was very AI specific, but the most important part of that conference was the sections or the sectors where AI is being applied currently, and it's basically everywhere. So it means even if you're a finance expert, even if you're a logistics expert, even if you're a health expert, for example, that conference would speak to you in some ways. So we had people from various parts, not just techies. We have people everywhere, and I got to speak with people that were into logistic businesses, and from there I could understand that okay, there are opportunities for expanding one's technical expertise outside just the tech sector. There are opportunities everywhere, basically. And that conference benefited me strongly. And I would definitely say that if you go for a conference, you'd have to talk to people. If you don't go for conferences, you can start within your inner circle of where you work, for example. Where you work, you have colleagues that you work with. The discussions with your colleagues don't necessarily have to be about the product you're working on. You can take the discussions outside those products. You could discuss about, ask them things about what books have you read recently? What books have you read that made you think differently, the ways of working? And you also don't have to talk with only tech people. That's one mistake we make. Talk to products people, talk to people in information security, ask them questions. Trust me, one of the things I want to learn here today is to hear from Tayo as well, because InfoSec is one of those things that we as backend engineers, it's just like it's like a small bird that speaks in our ear, but we don't pay that much attention. Every time the security guys always tell us this thing is wrong, that thing is wrong, I will just ignore them, because what to do our stuff. But talking to people like that, they help you to expand your horizon. They help you to think differently. Trust me, if you talk to a security expert, for example, and you're doing something, the discussions you've had, if it is applicable to what you're working on, that comes in subconsciously into what you're building. And you're much more security conscious when you're building stuff. If you don't have those conversations, they would never happen. So you have to have those conversations. You can't be an introvert and have a great relationship, so to say. You would have a relationship, but it might not be the best one that would elevate you forward. So
Okay.
let me stop there.
Okay. Thank you so much. So coincidentally, during the previous webinar, some of the speakers too were talking about the disadvantages of remaining an introvert. Let me just put it that way. Yes, if you feel you don't like to talk much, but if you really want your career to grow, you need to come out of your shell. In fact, there was a book that was recommended for those of us, maybe you missed last session. The book was Quiet, the Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain. So if you interested, you can get that. And for those just joining us, if you want to send in your questions, use onlinequestions.org 12121. Okay. Mr. Timitayo, he has said quite a lot of things about going to conferences and talking to your colleagues and all of that. But then, what if I'm a remote worker? I work remotely. Act in real life, I work remotely. I've never been to for like 3 years now, 4 years to be
Mhm.
precise. I think if not more than 4 years.
Yeah.
What advice do you give to me? How
Yeah.
can I build relationships or connections, especially when everybody is minding their business?
Yeah.
Um, for example, some of my colleagues, our age range, most of them have small kids. Once it's 5 o'clock, they've gone. They need to get to the daycare. They have PTA meeting. They want to do something. They need to attend this course. So nobody really has time for building in quotes relationship. What did you take for breakfast? Have you eaten? So what do I do
Yeah.
as someone that's working remotely? How do I
Yeah.
foster meaningful connections?
Yeah, I mean, the world that we live in now, there is always going to be a shift, and I think based on what Mr. Tega was talking about, for me, one of the most important thing is having the yearn for knowledge.
Mm,
No matter if you're an introvert, if you if you're thirsty for something, you would find a way to get it, and I think that's the most important thing, and that's where you can always know where the deficiency is. They say you're always using the classification of being an introvert as an excuse for you to test for something. I think it's good to identify what category you belong to, and then from there you can begin to find, okay, what is the approach that I can then use to overcome this. So I think first of all, it's obviously going to be the yearn for knowledge, and if you're precisely a remote worker, for example, I think one thing that I've noticed, that I've also always tried to do, for example, I work with people in different parts of the world. It's always good to set um, informal meetings. And I'll
mm,
explain what that means. It's not every meeting that has to be serious. It's not every meeting that has to be productive, in quotes. It's not every meeting that you need to get on to solve problems. Sometimes just set up a 15 minutes, 20 minutes, we call it coffee chats, where you just get on a call and you just talk like you would be in the office where you are. I mean, for lack of better word, gisting, but gisting is not the right expression, but you get what I mean, where you're just really talking generally, getting to know each other better, getting to know each other's life, getting to know what each other is working on. And it also doesn't have to be with people that you work with on a daily basis. It could be with somebody, for example, you're a backend engineer. You can set up a 15, 20 minutes coffee chats via Teams or Google Meets with someone that is a backend engineer or front end engineer or a products manager or whatever. But just building and fostering those relationships. And trust me, people are always very welcoming to it because everybody yearns for communication. Everybody yearns for relationship. So I think that's the beginning of it.
okay.
You knowing that even if you're a remote worker, you can still really build personal relationships. Um, with people at work, both direction, upward, like people that you report to, and also downward, people that report to you, and also your peers and people that you work with. So that's one important part of it. So you don't say because you're a remote worker, you can't build relationships with people. You can do that. I mean, some people would obviously decline, just to let you know up front. But I don't think that should be a stopper for you to say you don't do it to other people, because you know what your end game is. So that's one part of it. And the second part, obviously, like Mr. Tega has already mentioned, is conferences. Even if you're remote workers, I mean, yeah, some conferences are remote, but some conferences are also physical. So you can always attend those conferences. I know it could be sometimes very, I would like call it now, very reluctant to travel for conferences, hoping that your company will sponsor you. I encourage you, use your own money to go to conferences. I mean, it depends obviously on the kind of conference that you're talking about. I mean, if you're living in Nigeria and there's AWS reInvent in the USA, for example, that's obviously going to cost a lot. But you obviously also have events in the likes of Nigeria that you can always attend, or whatever country or states that you're in, there is always going to be an event that you can attend that you can always network. So those are multiple approaches. I mean, you also have the likes of LinkedIn. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, LinkedIn is always skeptical. But like I said, if you yearn for knowledge, you can always know how to filter what to do and what not to do, what to focus on and what not to focus on. So in summary, there's multiple approaches, and I think we've already mentioned a couple of them. For you that you have physical office that you go to, and for you that you also work remotely, it's then left for you to then really get creative around it. I
You
think that
know,
really is important.
okay, okay, thank you. Can you still hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, okay. So, thank you very much for that. So, still, we're talking about teams and all of that. How do you advise? How do I navigate an environment where the team members are quite competitive? Everyone is striving to please the boss. Maybe you're in a team of five, for example. The first person, maybe person number one is a new colleague, is trying to prove himself. The third person, maybe is trying to get promoted, and it seems like you are in a very competitive environment. Is it possible to even cultivate any relationship in the midst of all of that? How do I navigate that? Because this is bound to happen,
Mhm,
and everyone is
mhm.
probably trying to please the boss, or
Yeah.
everyone is trying to prove themselves as probably the best. Kind of, Mr. Tega, do you want to speak to that briefly?
Yeah, definitely. First, if you're in a team where there is no competition, then you're probably in the wrong team. I think you should be in a team where there's competition, but it depends on the type of competition, right? That's why I mentioned at the
That is
beginning, healthy competition. It has to be healthy. It has to be competition where you are not necessarily trying to outshine the next person. You're just trying to get yourself better. You're just trying to be excellent, basically. And seeing the other person do better than you should not annoy you. It should propel you to even be better, right? And it is okay
okay.
to please your boss. Please your boss. Everybody, actually, I would advise you to please your boss. If you don't please your boss, you probably won't get the promotion that you deserve, right? Please your boss, but be excellent. Whatever you want to do, make sure you do it to the best of your ability. Someone mentioned recently that everybody has what they call the best of their ability, and not we're not equal in terms of that best. So two of us could be on the same level in the office, but the work I produce might be consistently better than the work you produce. It doesn't mean that you're bad. If you're giving the best and the output is less than the output of me giving my best, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means just tell yourself that, did I do my best when I was working on this thing? If the answer to that is yes, you're good. And what the reason I said please your boss is because the boss is the one that has the conversations about how you would progress career-wise, right? So if your boss instructs you to do something, do that thing, but do it very well. Do it excellently so that when your boss sees it, it's pretty clear that you know what you're doing. So again, healthy competition is important. If the competition is unhealthy, I should speak to that. If you're in a team where people are constantly trying to bring you down, for example, you do something and during stand-up you said, I worked on this, that, and the next comment you hear is that you did not do it well. Why did you do that? Or why did you do this? Then it probably means that you are in an unhealthy environment. And you should have a conversation with your manager and say, you don't feel comfortable being brought down like that. It's something that affects people career-wise, something that could affect your confidence as well. So you have to address it immediately. If it doesn't work, leave that team or leave that company. It's as simple as that. I hope you can still hear me because your video is stuck.
Yeah, I can hear you. I think it's Tommy's network. Okay, perfect.
I can hear you. Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Temitayo. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it's covered the fundamental part of it. It's covered the fundamental part of it. I think one of the things he also mentioned is that you have to really have the healthy competition, and that is really always clear. And I think the main challenge always comes in when it is an unhealthy competition, and that really just you would always find that, because I think that's like corporate life 101. I mean, there is always going to be an unhealthy competition somewhere that you need to experience in your career, and it's always about building the learning points from it. And I think for me, the approach that I always go with is um, the most important thing that you need to know is that the boss focuses on who solves the problem. Because even if the boss wants to do favoritism, when the time comes to say who solves the problem, the person that is most important to the boss is the person that is able to solve the problem. Because the boss also has a boss that he needs to report to in terms of problems needs to be solved. So if the boss is favoring those that can't solve problems, he knows he's going to be in trouble himself. So I think that's the fundamental thing that you need to first of all put into your mind, that it's all about output, and the output that you provide, but at the same time being able to identify with your output, because I think that's also one important thing where you need to take away timidity. We talked about being introverted. If you did something that you did it right, claim it, stand up for it. Don't let anybody else claim what you've done. And that you can do in multiple ways, ensuring that you're aligned with your boss to say, these are the tasks that you provided it to me. This is how I have delivered it. And I did this, I did that. I know in the context of team spirit, you want to sometimes tend to there, we did this, we did that, but you need to be able to claim your victory to say, I did this, I did that. Such that no one else takes up the glory for what you have done. So it's all of those things that you need to really also stand up for yourself. And I think the most important thing is one of the most important thing is also focusing on your work ethic. Because if you're in the unhealthy competition, it could really get messy, and then you start losing the core of your personality. So in terms of you building fake relationships, you then start playing into the politics, start doing gossips and all of that. The reality of the fact is all of that would not help. You still stay true to yourself. Remember, output is what is the most important. So if you can focus on your work ethic, your contribution, and be professional and deliver value and acclaim your value, I think it's just going to be a matter of time before the boss is able to know that they can't do without you. So I think that's one of the strategies that you can go about it. Instead of playing to the politics, you focus on your work outputs and claim the victories that you're delivering to the team.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Okay, next question. So what are the like specific relationships you take before you prioritize? For example, you've said um I should build relationships with people that are outside my team and all of that. But are there any specific relationships I should like prioritize? I should work on? Okay, you've mentioned my manager. I need to at least, of course, please me. Are there any other people I need to prioritize within the company and outside the company for like significant impact in my career growth?
Is that for
Mr.
me?
Maybe Mr. Temi Tayo,
Okay.
you want to go?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
It all depends. It all depends on what you want, I think. Because in as much as really one of the fundamentals is build as much relationship as you want. But I think one of the missing words in there is building strategic relationships. Because the strategy then
Mm,
comes in to say, where exactly do you want to go? And that really then defines the ones that you make the most important. If you're somebody that okay, for example, I'm a backend engineer, and I want to do a lot more security, such that when I'm pushing out my code, for example, on the list of security champions, you can really see that yeah, from an assessment perspective, my code is clean, my code is secure from a security perspective. You then obviously build relationship with security people. If you're somebody that you're a backend engineer, you're also interested in front-end engineering, you build relationship with the front-end people. If you're somebody that you're interested in progressing from a career perspective, you build relationship with those that have the leadership skills that are required. So it really does depend on what you want and where you want to get to. Um, because like I always say, everybody is different. We all know what we are looking for, and we all know what we want. It's then really identifying what is required for me to go to the next level, or what is required for me to empower myself or enable myself, and then based off of that, I build the right relationship. You could also be somebody that you're interested in HR, and you build relationship with HR. So it really does matter. I mean, it might not actually be a direct answer, but I think the fundamental is focusing on building strategic relationships based on where you want to go, and that then lets you know what is important and what is not, or what should be prioritized, because all relationships are important. But then which one should you prioritize? Which one should you have more calls, more conversations with, and less calls, less conversations with? It all depends on where you want to go.
Okay, wow, thank you so much. Yes, that really makes sense because strategic relationship, depending on your current phase and where you are hoping to go to. So thank you so much. So the next question is for junior professionals, how can we manage or how can they manage relationships with their senior colleagues without being a burden? So I usually sometimes feel, oh, I hope I'm not disturbing this person. I seem to have 1,000,001 questions. Are there ways that I can still maintain that relationship without being a burden to them, Mr. Tega?
Yeah, before I answer that, just to speak to what he mentioned before, because I really like the way he
Okay.
answered that. And I wanted to speak that to the fact that I applied that personally as well. So while I was a senior software engineer, I knew I wanted to be a staff software engineer as my next as the next stage. So basically, I asked myself, who are the staff engineers in this company that I look up to, that I think they are really doing well? And of course, I started talking to them. I started listening to them when they talk in meetings. Ask them questions privately, and just get ideas about how they think. So basically, you make relationships with people based on what you want to be. If you want to build a company in the future, you want to be a CEO, probably you have to have relations with everybody in the company, product managers, because you're going to need them, right? Now, to answer your question, very, very important question, because everybody gets into this problem once in a while, and then you'd have people that say they are looking up to you, but they don't ask you questions because they are scared that they are going to be a burden. So the first thing I would like to say about this is, before you throw a problem to someone you look up to, ask yourself, what have I tried? One thing
Hmm.
that I personally don't like is when you come to me and you say, I have this problem, and I ask you, what have you done? And you say, you want us to discuss the problem together. There's Google. I mean, now there's even ChatGPT that basically tells you a lot of rubbish, but still gives you some ideas, right? So do something first. Trust me, the person you're looking up to would appreciate it more when you come to him and you say, I have this problem. I have tried A, B, and C. A seems to be working, but it's not optimal enough. B and C, totally useless solutions. What do you think? The person will be really, really excited to help, because the person can see that you've actually done some work. And the person's answer could even be based off the solutions you already proposed. The person doesn't have to do all the thinking from scratch. So that's one way to not be a burden. Think of that problem first. Of course, sometimes you would not have any solution at all, but it's still okay to at least spend some time and tell yourself that, okay, I've done the best I can, but I need help right now. So that's one thing that you can do to not necessarily be a burden. And also try not to throw everything to that person. Every single problem you have, you don't have to throw to that person. You need to also gauge the amount of time you reach out to the person, because they also have things they are working on. And trust me, they did not come to this work because of you, so they can't be there to solve all your problems. So you would have to gauge out the frequency of contact you have with them. So one thing I do practically is, if I have problems and I want to discuss with a senior, for example, I make a list of that problems, and that list I keep looking at, and I keep asking myself, which of these can I take on my own? Which can I solve on my own? And when it gets to, let's say I've not spoken to the person in 1 month, so I just schedule a meeting and we'll run through those items one by one together. So I know that I just take a chunk of your time and we address all the issues I have, rather than me coming to you every single morning on Slack, hello this, hello that. That becomes very, very challenging. It's not, that becomes an unhealthy relationship. The person would even be hesitant to want to continue a relationship with you. So that's what I would advise, anyways.
Okay, spot on. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. So this next question is something a question I'm really interested in getting an answer to, and I'm sure it will really be beneficial to many of us listening. So the question says, tech professionals often face stereotypes, like being blunt. So usually, it's not very uncommon for us to hear comments like techies are very blunt, they are rude, they don't have social skills. I don't know if I'm the only one that has heard that before, but I hear it a lot. I see it a lot on, because I have like, do I say CEOs or CTOs on my WhatsApp. So I see it on their WhatsApp status complaining bitterly about how techies relate to their clients. For example, I've also been do I say a victim too, like giving out a task to someone, and then you are trying to get feedback, they are not responsive for weeks, and all of a sudden you just say, I'm done. They don't really have good communication skills, interpersonal skills, almost, do I say almost zero, and that has really affected us. Like getting good mentors, approachable mentors, and mentors with empathy, kind, that are approachable, that can mentor. There are many like competent techies out there, but it's very difficult to find people that are really approachable and have good interpersonal skills. Why do you think that is happening? And then how do I even assess to be sure that I don't even fall in that category? Because everybody will be saying they. People will just assume that it's others. So preach on, pastor, but they never really want to look inwards and probably see, do I fall in that category? How do I assess myself? And then what if I fall into that category of people, techies that don't really have good interpersonal skills? How do I improve myself and all of that? So I feel that's a very big question. um but then it would be nice to hear your perspective on this. Let's start with Mr. Timitayo. You are muted, by the way.
Yeah, the typical online call. I would say that's a loaded question. Um, and I mean, like, we could approach it from a psychological perspective, to say, what you need to know, is that there are different personalities. I mean, we've spoken about being introverted, being extroverted. So there are people there that have different characteristics. Now, there is also the IQ EQ conversation, to say, yes, you could have a very high um, IQ, but not actually also a high EQ. And that varies for different people. And I would say it's not just a tech thing. I think it's generally across any industry. I mean, you take a look at the medical line, for example, you could say surgeons are also not necessarily good at emotional stuffs. And that's why you have the likes of nurses. So it's across the board. Once you identify that it's not just a tech thing, it's just a human being thing. I think that's the first things first. Now, identifying if you fall into the category is also going to be based on all that we were speaking about, to say, how good are you at building relationships? How good are you at building interpersonal relationships? Do people come to you? Are people open to speaking to you? Do people decline your meeting invites when you send them meeting invites because they don't just want to talk to you? So all of those kind of things are going to be obvious to you. I also believe that we work in an era where feedback is like a big thing, either professionally or informally. So you must have received the feedback at one point in time that, oh, you're like this and you're like that. And at the same time, sometimes you discard those feedbacks to say, oh, no, that's not true. But in progressing into this third phase of the question is then you taking up the responsibility of reflecting, to say, oh, I've heard this from two different people. Okay, can I sit down and think about it? Is this really indeed true? And like I mentioned, you can always know if it is true. Like, people don't really just want to talk to you. People don't want to build relationships with you. People don't actually want to socialize with you. People find you difficult to work with. You would always know. So that's always the first way of doing an internal reflection. Now, if you then fall into the category of people that carry such traits, I think the first things first is knowing that the knowledge of a problem is the first step to the solution to the problem. So if you know that you have difficulty in interpersonal relationships, you're too blunt, you're too direct, you don't know how to socialize, all of those, I think that's the first step to it. You accepting it as a personal trait, first of all, and then you can begin to solve it. I think one of the things that is always going to be good for you to identify, which I've always done, is knowing fully well that you need people in your own personal life to move forward. It's the same way that other people also need you for them to also move forward. So if you're able to rethink it and switch it to say, okay, yeah, I'm faking, can I also give back with respect to building relationships? I think that's one of the first things that we really need to consider. So it's okay to carry the tag to say, oh, we're too blunt, we're too direct, we don't know how to build interpersonal relationships, but then accepting it as a personal trait to say, okay, yeah, this is the reality that I have now. Okay, how can then I begin to solve it? And obviously, it's all of that is you listening well, ensuring that you're listening to people, ensuring that you're calm, ensuring that you're not the priority of every conversation, because oftentimes it's always about ego. So ensuring that you're not the priority of it all, ensuring that you're also able to identify humility in yourself. And all of this you can find in books that can help you build character, build traits, build relationships. You can always find books. I mean, I don't have any that can give you. There are a lot of books on emotional intelligence that you can always read up on. But like I mentioned, the first steps is obviously understanding that it is not just a tech thing; it's just a human thing. The second step is obviously identifying, is this related to me? And I've already spoken about that. How do you identify that? And then the next step is then trying to accept it and then solving it by reading books and also attending seminars, having mentors that you can talk to about it openly, because it's a vulnerable spot, right? So you need mentors that you can talk to about it and say, okay, yeah, this is what I'm trying to deal with. So that's really just what I will talk to you about it.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Tega, do you want to add to that? Or do you think he nailed it? Do you want to just buttress?
I completely agree. It depends on the person. It's an individual thing, not a job thing.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. Um, so there's this tricky question. I think we addressed it during the last quote. Coincidentally, Mr. Temitayo was our guest during that webinar. But there was this question that came in, and I think we might want to address it again for the benefit of those mentees in this quote and then our other viewers. So someone asked that, what if I've been giving my best? I come early, I do the best. I think I'm doing my best. Still, when it's time for performance evaluation, somehow I'm getting average, meet expectation, not exceeding, and I feel I'm exceeding. I'm doing my best. I don't sleep on time. I'm writing my code. What am I doing wrong? What do you think would be your advice, Mr. Tega, to such person?
Okay. Okay. So the first thing you should ask yourself is, do you have a good manager? Right? Because your manager is not 100% responsible for what you see in your performance evaluation, but they are the ones that are actually there to speak on your behalf. They're your advocates in the office, right? When you have these behind the scenes meetings where you're not there and people are asking questions about you, they are the ones that are there to defend you. So the first thing is, do you have a good manager and do you have a good relationship with your manager? If you have a good relationship with your manager, then it is likely that the problem is either your manager is not properly selling you, or your manager's manager is not buying the story your manager is pushing across, right? It's a very, very nuanced argument, because the reason why people get average in reviews, this is one reason why I don't want to go into the managerial part, because the politics there it's very, very complex. It's very, very complex. But it starts from your manager, right? You need to. So if you're giving average, usually where I work, there is a conversation that happens after you've been given that performance review with your manager. Your manager tells you that, okay, this is what you got, this is what we think, this is where you can improve, right? Take that feedback and ask yourself, does this feedback really tally with the effort I have given? If you are telling you that you have to improve in writing RFCs, for example, or you have to improve in collaborating with other teams when you're building projects, and you know that during that period, you wrote 4 RFCs and you did a lot of collaborative projects, then your next question should be, what are these guys saying? It doesn't match. But if the feedback matches what you see, then work on that. And honestly, I think we are the true judges of what we do. So if you are truly convinced that the what you get in your performance feedback does not really match the effort you're putting in, and you're 100% sure, then I always tell people that this life is not, you don't have to kill yourself, right? Leave that team or leave that company. If you know that what you're giving it does not tell you what you're getting, just move on. But the first thing is, take that feedback and benchmark it against the output you got. Sometimes you think you did exceedingly great, but in some companies the expectations are really set high that that thing you think is exceedingly great is just okay. I've been in the situation where there was a time I got meets expectation or some maybe performing. That's when I just got to staff and they said performing, and that was 6 months after my staff, and I was like, I don't get performing is not in my career, it's not in my I remember so my manager told me that you just got to staff, right? And if you go read the staff framework, what they expect from you, you're just here 6 months. You can't have gotten there yet. So definitely this is what, and it made sense because I just got to staff. And even then I was still wearing the cap of a senior software engineer. I was a staff, but it takes some time for that mindset shift to happen, right? So me, I was just thinking about, oh, I'm a high performer anywhere I am. But now you have to sit down and think about, look at the facts and look at the results and see whether this thing really makes sense. Of course, the following review, I got the next one, which was what I expected. But at that point, I had to just sit back and listen to the feedback, take the feedback, and really check whether it was really true, right? So, in summary, when you get that feedback, have the conversation with your manager. Take the feedback, compare with what you think you're doing. Most companies have a career framework. Look at the career framework and benchmark it against what the feedback says and what you actually did. And ask yourself if that feedback's really true. If it's not true, then you have to start working towards it, switching teams or switching the company, because you cannot stay stagnant because some people are not doing what they should do. And trust me, the politics that happen on the performance review side is something you don't want to get yourself involved in. So your manager has to be your best advocate. If your manager is not advocating for you, then you have to either move or move elsewhere. And sometimes it's not even your manager's fault. I had a case where someone had a manager that was very timid. So the manager was not really speaking for the person. It took a manager from another team to speak on behalf of the guy for him to get promoted. And I was like, what is this? So your manager was not able to even promote you further. Someone else that had seen the work you did based on a collaborative project was the one that came to step in. So sometimes you're just unlucky. We're just unlucky to get people that don't speak highly of us. So you really need to work closely with the manager to ensure that. And that ties into what Tayo said, that don't say, it's good to say we did this, but after you say we did this, you can also put a clause and say we did this project and I specifically worked on this module that led to this impact, ask questions about the impact of the things you do and put them in your self-assessment, and let's see how they are going to tell you did not do great. So that's where I'm going to stop.
Thank you so much for that. So I'm hearing a lot of things. So first of all, you're saying that have a very candid session with your manager to ask, get the details, don't assume. Then look at probably the KPIs and benchmark it and be very truthful to yourself. Did you really meet all those things in the KPI? So you're saying that there's usually like criteria that one is supposed to meet, and so we should benchmark what you feel you've done with those items on that KPI, that document. And then you're saying we should show our work in such a way that even external people too can see, just in case your manager is maybe his hands are tied or something. At least it's evident before everyone that indeed you have done a terrific work. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Temita. Do you want to add to that?
No, I mean it's totally spot on, and I think the call out that I have is to his last point, where you have a line manager is not necessarily as outspoken or not able to defend you, and I just was just writing in my head to say strategic relationship. So you can build lateral strategic relationship to your reporting line, especially when you know your boss is not somebody that maybe speaks a lot, or you think your boss can't defend you. Your boss has peers. Build relationship with your boss's peers, such that if he can't speak for you, somebody at that level is going to be able to speak for you. And that's what we talk about, building strategic relationship. And then maybe the other thing I also want to mention is specifically for people that feel that they do a lot and maybe it's not recognized. I think what I also always notice is some people always confuse volume for efficiency. And that's not always the case. So if you feel that you're doing a lot, the question is, are you doing things effectively? A lot could just mean you're solving maybe just 10%, compared to somebody that is doing a lot and you're solving 90%. So you also have to always put that into perspective. And that you also laid hands on to say you have to define deliverables, KPIs, like these are the things that you need to deliver. And you need to align that with your boss to be sure that it's clearly stated that you have to do A, B, C, and D. But if doing A is taking you 90% capacity, then there's a problem in there. And you can by yourself see that, oh, I've not even finished A and there is still B, C, and D. So you already by yourself would know that even though you're having sleepless nights because of work, you still ain't delivering. So it's all of that you always have to put into perspective.
Okay. Thank you so much for that contribution. So last question from my end before we have quite some questions on onlinequestions.org. But last question from me. Um, hmm. So how do I thrive in my career if I'm the only person in my field in the company I work or in the team I work? So, for example, maybe I'm working in a cross-functional team, or maybe I'm working in a team where I am the. Can you still hear me? I'm the only maybe QA. I'm the only data engineer in the team. It's a cross-functional team. It's a startup. How do I build my career? How do I build my network if I'm the only one practicing that field in my company? Maybe Mr. Tega, do you want to go?
Definitely, yes. The reason I was smiling is because, again, the question is like speaking to me directly. I'm someone you would call a loyalist sometimes. So, a background story. I left Conga and went to France to do a master's. And after doing a master's, it's one of these masters where after the master's you have to do an internship as well. So, even though I was a senior software engineer in Conga or a software engineer, I don't think we had a title then that knew what it was doing. I still had to come and apply for an internship role in the company. So basically, an intern software engineer. It was difficult to get. I had to cook my CV and remove all of the things I had done so that they would know that they would think I don't know anything. And then I finally got the job in Germany. And after 6 months, they made my role permanent. And I was the only backend engineer there, right? And because these guys basically saved me from not having an internship role, I became loyal to them. And I was there for 3 years. And it's one of the mistakes I made in my career, right? If you're in a place where you are the only, not just the only, if you are the best at that place consistently, leave. That's the summary. Leave that place or go and do something else. Because if you don't have competition, there is, unless you're very disciplined, it takes a very disciplined person to be the best and still strive to be better than his self of yesterday. It takes a very disciplined, because if you are the one that solves all the problems, you're the one everybody runs to when there is a challenge, right? In your head, you already think that what else is there to learn? I'm solving all the problems here, right? And it takes discipline to try to be better than what you were before. It also takes, maybe if you're also lucky, maybe if you go to conferences, you'd realize that you're probably just local champion. You don't know everything, and then you would strive to be better. But trust me, there is nothing as good as having people around you that are better than you. That's I want to always be in a place where I am not the best, because that's the only way I can try to get better, right? So my simple advice would be either to be disciplined enough to always challenge yourself to be better, or just leave. Go somewhere where you would have more competition, more people that are of the same background with you. That's what I would say to that, anyways.
Thank you so much for that. Maybe I'll twist the question a bit, Mr. Tayo. What if I cannot leave? What if the economy we don't have so many opportunities like that? You are searching LinkedIn, no opportunity. Can't afford to leave the company then, or I'm about to go on maternity leave or something. I don't have the time to start practicing for algorithm questions for interviews again, or I'm in a company where I can't, my visa status, there's a comma around it. I can't afford to leave now. And I'm working in a start, and I'm the only maybe QA engineer. What do I do? How do I grow my network? How do I do better? How do I improve myself?
Yeah, I mean that obviously complicates it further, because I think the Tega has already given the precise response. I mean, it might be unfair, but that's the reality. But then you not having the opportunity to leave, which is understandable, because I think I understand the nuances that are coming also in with respect to you not having the opportunity to leave, because sometimes it might not necessarily be straightforward. That obviously complicates it. But I think the other thing that you could also consider is, so even if you are the best in class, it's also a function of, is the company going somewhere?
Hmm.
If the company is going somewhere, then it could be an opportunity for you to then really champion. And when the company is going somewhere, just what Mr. Tega mentioned, there's always going to be a challenge, because the company is going somewhere. You're going to be solving problems that have never been solved before. So that really gives you the opportunity and the challenge, and also helps you build relationship, because you then begin to meet a lot of people because of what you're responsible for, and everybody comes to you. So that's one twist to it. If the company is going somewhere, then obviously that's still beneficial, even if you can't leave. Now, if you don't have the opportunity to leave and the company is not going anywhere, I mean, I don't want to use the word, but the real word I want to use, and pardon my blunder, is you're really screwed, because it's really going to stifle a lot. in terms of your own career growth. And I'm also not somebody that really likes to compare myself with my peers, but you will really then see your peers leave you. And even most likely, the people that are learning from you in the same company would then overshadow you and go into another company and also go higher than you are. So that really is the tough truth. But what I would then say to it is that the most important thing is still be professional, because you never can tell in life. You never can tell what could happen. Still be professional, still do what you're supposed to do, because people are always looking for problem solvers. So even if you're not able to leave the company, you're as good as anybody in the job that you do. There's somebody that is going to be watching somewhere, and the person would fight tooth and nail to solve the problem for you. I give myself as an example. I mean, I was fortunate enough not to have to relocate for education before I got a job. I had a boss that I was working with in Nigeria. He also got the opportunity to leave the country. And then what he also got outside of the country, had a position to apply. He had a position open, and he was able to fight tooth and nail to bring me over, because he knew that, oh, this is the person that's going to be able to get this job done. So the most important thing in that situation, in a difficult situation, is make sure you stay professional. Make sure you don't lose your drive and your passion. It's potentially going to happen that you would lose that, but make sure that you stick to it. You don't lose your drive. You don't lose your professionalism. You keep building yourself as much as you can, such that when the right opportunity then comes eventually, you're still very much prepared for it, as against you losing your drive, losing your professionalism, and the opportunity comes and then you're not fit for it anymore. So opportunity would always come. It's just then staying faithful to your values. I would say that's the only best advice I can give you, because life would always give you those opportunities, and you just really need to be prepared for them. So that's the best advice I can give in that situation.
Yes, thank you so much. That really resonates with me. I remember having a similar experience too, where I was in a team where there was a lot of layoffs and all, and I couldn't really do much. Although I was trying to do certain things, I was already pregnant, like very heavy, and I started going for interviews. So you could imagine companies not getting back to me, and you are going on maternity leave soon and all of that. But luckily for me, let's just say I stayed true to professional values, just like you said, and somehow I got a referral from a previous colleague that was in the same company with me, and I just noticed that this HR kept on reaching out to me and all, and everything just turned out fine. So yes, I do agree with what you've shared. Thank you so much, sir. So I think we are done with my questions. So we are going to the questions from our viewers at home. Um, okay. So the first question is saying, how do I keep and maintain relationships after connecting with people? I do struggle with that so much because I get tired of people easily. I think that happens to me too. Like maintaining the relationship even after connecting. Maybe you have an event, you connected, you laughed, high five, you shared contacts and all. So how do I maintain the relationship? Do I send broadcast messages to the person's WhatsApp every week? That's good morning. That good morning picture that our parents used to send to us. Do I send it to that person? Happy New Month. Or what do you suggest I do? How do I and then if I feel I'm a bit, just like the person said, I get tired of people easily. Briefly, in let's say 60 seconds, Mr. Tega, what do you suggest?
Okay, so it depends on where you met this person, right? If you meet someone at the conference, you're not going to become besties all of a sudden. So, and to be sincere, these relationships you make with people at conferences, they are not. You don't necessarily have to talk to them every day. You don't have to talk to them every month. You just keep those contacts because you will need them at some point. It could be that you are out of a job and you need a job that is like what that person, where that person is working, and you could just reach out and say, "Hey, I know you work at this part. I met you at this conference. I'm currently looking for something like that." It could also be the other way around, that there's an opening in your company and you know that person is good at that thing, and the person had already told you that if there's an opening, you should reach out to them. So I think you should reach out to them when it's necessary, but maybe not only when it's necessary. Maybe once in a while, you could also just make a post about your meeting with them on LinkedIn, or when they post on LinkedIn, put a
Like,
comment there and say, "Yeah, nice one," blah 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 blah, something like that, just to show that there's that contact. But I wouldn't say you start bombarding them with messages regularly unless you're already very close. It doesn't. There's no point doing that. I mean, if you meet me at the conference and you start sending me WhatsApp message every day, I'll block you.
Okay. Okay, noted, sir. I won't send a happy new month and good morning post. Thank you for cautioning me right there. I remember too how I met one of our our mentors right now, Chibuzo. Shout out to you. We met at a conference and I was minding my business. I was just looking. And luckily for me, he was the outgoing person and he reached and we somehow were able to maintain that connection and up till now he's one of our prestigious mentors on larger platforms. So yes, I agree with what you said. I didn't have to send him messages every week before we maintained that relationship. Mr. Tai, do you want to add to what he has said?
Yeah, I mean, it's spot on, and I think there is this implicit. I wouldn't call it the rule. So that's why you have professional relationship. That's why there's a terminology for it. It's not a casual relationship; it's a professional relationship. And there's an implicit rule that we don't need to be chat buddies. We shouldn't even be chat buddies. And that's the way it's supposed to stay. So it's called professional relationship for a thing. You don't have to worry about having to reach out to the person on a periodic basis, because I think any reasonable professional in the professional world knows how professional relationships works. Well, like, except you're a salesperson, which I don't think there's any salesperson on the call. But you don't need to always reach out to your mentors or the mentees or people that you're connecting with. You don't need to always do that. You just always have to, like you mentioned, make comments and posts, reach out once in a while, and the likes, and that's really just sufficient. Just knowing that you're there, you're progressing. That's really what is important. You
Yes.
don't need to try to build a personal relationship, except for when there is any mutual interest to build a
Yes.
personal relationship. You can then go further. But if it's just a professional relationship, you leave it as a professional relationship.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. And that also reminds me of something that happened like a week ago. One of our previous mentees from the previous cohort just reached out to me that she got a job from because we usually post job opportunities on the platform. So I had sent it earlier about this job opportunity. A senior colleague put on his WhatsApp status. So luckily for her, she got the job. So she sent it to me. I said, "No, I don't have to be the only one that must hear about it. Your mentor from previous cohort. This is a time to reignite that relationship. Thank you so much for I applied all that you sent the other time. I've gotten a new job now. Thank you. And just try to maintain the relationship and all of that. So yes, thank you. So another question says, what are the platforms one can join online where one can network and ask questions? I'm not sure there's anyone like that, but I don't know if you know anyone, Mr. Tayo, Tega. Do you know of any apart from LinkedIn? And maybe Stack Overflow. If you are a techie person, maybe I don't know. Do
I
you know
mean,
of any
I don't
platform?
think you network on Stack Overflow though.
Okay.
But I mean, if we're talking about networking and relationship like this, maybe Ladder Tech is a good platform because you meet mentors, right? You build relationship with mentors, and relationship can go beyond the length of the cohort or the session, whatever it's called, right? There are a couple of mentorship platforms that you could join as well. I have one here built by a friend called Techstarter. You could also join that, and then you get to talk. He is very, very handsome, so you get to talk with him regularly and ask him questions about you work on real life projects with him. He's kind of a full stack person, so he's able to help you even if you're back end or front end, and you could build something like that. But I don't know if there's anyone where you could just go in and just meet people randomly and ask them questions. I'm not sure actually. And I'm an advocate for more not virtual online relationships with people, but people that you see that you can talk to. That's what I would advocate for. I think it brings more. There's more this sense of personness in that kind of when you see the person, you talk to the person, you gauge the emotions. If it's virtual, it's like you're just talking to an AI, and it's not really what I would advise.
Okay. Thank you so much. So someone is saying, said this is to Mr. Tega. As someone who is inspired by your leadership, I'd love to explore potential opportunities to contribute to your organization. What qualities and skills are you looking for in a candidate? So in summary, he's asking how can you get a job at Delivery Europe? What are the qualities that people always look out for?
I
Maybe he
like
has tried to apply previously and it did not work.
I like that you
Any
summarize.
tip?
like that you summarized the question already. I mean, like many other tech companies out there, I think the first thing I wish we could talk to people face to face so I can ask them, what have you done? Have you been rejected before? At what stage? Because that's how you know where you can really help. But to give like a full level answer to it, it starts from the application itself. Apart from that, it starts from your experience. If you're applying for a role that you're not qualified for, then the likelihood that you're going to get that role is very, very slim. So, are you applying for something you're qualified for, or are you applying for a role that you think you match? If you're applying for a role that matches your level, then your CV, sometimes your CV does not even get to the people that matter because it's not properly structured. So I'm
Yeah.
not an HR expert, so I'd advise you to go look at. I can recommend some websites where you can. I have a colleague here that's an HR expert. She has a website and a podcast where she talks about all of these things.
You
There's
can
nothing
share
like,
the link.
yeah,
Share.
I'll put it
Okay.
in our private chat here and then you can post it later.
Okay.
It's called Dear Candidates. It's loaded with lots of things about, and she's a tech recruiter. So basically, it's if you're a tech person or you're looking for a tech job, that's where to start. And once you get to the place where the people that matter will start talking to you, which is the actual interview processes, then it's about how well you're prepared. I really can't tell you that this is what we're looking for. The job says senior Golang engineer. You are a Golang engineer, but you just started last year. You're not senior. Don't apply. You're just going to end up wasting your time. Unless you're lucky, maybe the grace of God covers you, and then you just go and you get the job. But if we're being realistic, don't apply. Look for a junior or an entry level position and apply for it, and then you see that you're able to tick all the boxes. Most time in delivery, if you apply for a senior position, what distinguishes it from a normal position is the system design interview. If you're not able to
Okay.
pass the system design interview, you're not going to get the senior role. So go on YouTube, just type system design. In fact, sometimes when I type system design on YouTube, the things I see, there are so much that I'm overwhelmed watching them. There are lots of system design videos you can look at, and just look at how to build systems, pick a thing or two, and then learn those fundamentals and bring them into the interview. You would see that it will be very easy. But I see a lot of people just apply for a position without really thinking about what the interview process would look like, and then when they get there, they struggle a bit. So it's very important. And I always advise, if you're in Nigeria, start from a company in Nigeria. Most of my
Okay.
friends that are here, it's only me and maybe one other person that came here from studies. Most of my friends came from Nigeria straight up. They got a job straight because they already had experience in Nigeria.
Okay.
They built stuff, right? So they were able to just translate that to the positions they were applying for. So if you have a job in Nigeria already, that's a good place to start. Keep working there. Keep doing excellent things there, and you'll be surprised you just get something here as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that.
Thank you so much. I think finally, someone here also has a question for Mr. Temitayo. He says, this is to Mr. Temitayo. What's the best way for me to get in touch with you and also explore potential opportunities within your organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Tika also mentioned, um, it always depends, and I think maybe just to make it a short answer, you can always reach me via LinkedIn.
Okay.
I think I do LinkedIn a lot. You can reach me via LinkedIn, drop me a message, and we can have a conversation about it. And I can always give you a pointer, but I think Mr. Teg has already given you insight into all of this. There is no favoritism, and I think it's good to be clear on that. There's really no favoritism when people get jobs because they know someone. I think that's really clear. Because it's also a reputational thing. When myself or Mr. Tega or the likes of Tommy is also making referrals, it's always ensuring that we make the right referrals, because
Yeah.
we have built relationships, and we also need to maintain the standards of those relationships so that someone can always come back to us to say, "Oh, I'm looking to hire for this position." So just to make it clear to everybody, that there is always, to the best possible, fairness in it all. Because we ourselves, as we are panelists in here, we are also looking to move ahead also, right? So there is always a 360 degree to it. So I think for me personally, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and then we can have conversation about it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think we've covered all the questions. I think we've covered everything. Um, okay. And then, okay. Do you have any last minute advice, Mr. Tega? about relationships and all?
Um, I didn't really think of something actually, but I would just like to say that as someone who has struggled with this, I don't think I'm an introvert. I think I'm in the middle of being an introvert and an extrovert. But it feels like now that I'm a father with kids, the introvert's nature is coming back again because I spend so much time at home, right? But I think it's really important to just make that time out to network and talk to people. It's really important. When I went to my last conference, I was telling my manager then that okay, I'm going for this conference and I've looked through the topics they're talking about. It's just AI, AI, AI. That everything that I can read everything online. I don't need to go there. She said it doesn't have to be what they're talking about. It's more about the people you get to meet there. And that
Hmm.
really, I mean, it's not like I did not know that. Sometimes you know things, but it takes someone else to say it to you again for it to really stick in your head. Like, okay, yeah, I know what you said, but now that you've said it, kind of makes double sense. So you need to make out that time to get to know people, get to meet people, especially people that you look up to being like. If you're looking forward to being a senior engineer or a staff engineer, a principal engineer, a manager, look at managers, look at where they go to conferences for managers, go there, attend, talk to them, ask them questions about what they are doing. And trust me, the benefits cannot really be overemphasized. It's very, very important. Just if you're that kind of person that you say an introvert, think about how you can bring yourself out of your shell. And worst case scenario, attend virtual conferences, online conferences, and get to learn from people. In those conferences, there are opportunities to have some chats, like this chat room or this, like what Tyler was saying about virtual coffee chat and all those. You can have those in conferences as well, online conference where you talk to people that you've never met before. You have these breakout rooms and you discuss. And before you know what's happening, you start sharing ideas. And last thing, it kept in my mind at the beginning,
Hmm.
personal thing for me, but
Okay.
you apply it if you think it makes sense for you. When you're in meetings, personally, when I'm in
Okay.
meetings, I don't talk much. I learn a lot from listening to people, but I also make sure that whenever I open my mouth to speak, I don't say rubbish, so that the single time that people hear me talk, it's impactful. I've been in meetings where some people will just talk, and when they finish talking for like 10 minutes, you're like, "What did this guy talk about?" There are some people that are always they want to be like the ones that are in control. Don't be that person unless you know what you're saying. You
Okay.
gain a lot from listening than speaking, because trust me, what you're saying, you know it already. So you would not. The only thing you gain from saying that thing is that you share knowledge. But when you listen, you gain much more because you probably hear things that you've not heard before. So I tell people to just practice the habit of conscious listening. Just listen a lot and only speak when necessary. So that's what I would say actually. I didn't plan anything, so this is just the ramblings of
Okay.
a mother with two kids.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Temitayo. Any last words? Benefits of relationships with 360-degree relationship, upwards, the vertical and horizontal relationships, and all. Maybe you want to share maybe an experience or a testimony of how relationship help. Like for me.
I think I can just maybe write from what Mr. Tega mentioned, because I think um the summary, one of the things I would like to mention in writing from what Mr. Tega mentioned is, don't be a nuisance.
Hmm.
In the sense that to gain attention or to be seen, you then really become a nuisance. You start speaking when you're not supposed to be spoken, all for the name of, oh, I want to be seen, I want to show off, or I want my manager to see me, I want my peers to see me, and trying to build this relationship or get ahead in career. I think one of the damages that you can do to yourself is you then becoming a nuisance, because when you then open your mouth, people don't really want to listen to what you have to say. So it's really important that you have content. And I think that's also the thing that I see, where you aspire to be somewhere, but you really haven't done the work to have content. And I think that's also what Mr. Tego was mentioning at one point when he was saying that if you're coming to a mentor or a senior colleague with a problem, you better have done something. Because the saying that I always have is, if you want me to run with you, you must have run 1,000 miles already. Because I'm
Okay.
not going to be the one that would fuel the engine, kickstarts the engine, and start driving. You must have been in motion, and then I'm then going to be able to then push, use my own strength to then push, or have your your senior colleagues just their own trying to push. So have some content in building relationships, because if you're going to conferences and you want to have conversations, there must be something that needs to come out, right? If you want to have conversations about a specific topic, there has to be something. It's conversational. It's not a behind school where somebody's putting marker to the board for you. It's a conversational thing. So you must have done your own research,
Mm.
have your own content. And I think those are the really key things that people would then want to have conversations with you. So I think that's one important thing. I think the other thing that I also actually want to call out is I mean, the reason why we are doing this is career advancement, right? I mean, that's the main purpose. Let's put it in the summary. So I think one thing that I would also always recommend, which I also do personally, is build relationship with recruiters. We have recruiters across the globe, and some of them you can easily always find on LinkedIn. Build
Mm.
relationships with them, reaching out to them, just letting them know, "Oh, this is what I do, this is my CV," and stuff like that. That's another area of connection that you can always have with people that you want to build relationships with. So build relationships with recruiters locally and also internationally. Um, Another thing is do not be bound by the social construct, because I think it's always easy to be, oh, I'm an introvert, oh, I'm an extrovert, and you're just really bound by that. But instead of that, use the knowledge of that to then really identify what needs to be worked on. Because the reality is there is no one way. I, for example, and I'm extreme introvert, and just like Tegan also mentioned, I'm also a father. Like I spend most of my time indoor, but there are just certain relationships that you need to build. I'm also
Mm.
not a fan of going and traveling for conferences. I'm not a fan of it, but I know I have to do it.
Okay.
So those are the things that you just really have to step out of your comfort zone, and I think that's where I'm driving at. That you need to understand that not everything comes easy. You need to work for it. And one of working for it is you stepping out of your comfort zone and doing what is required to get ahead. And I think that's one thing that you always have to take with you. And for as an example, you mentioned I should give examples. And as an example, when I was desiring progress, what I did was that I started not blind, is it blind mailing or cold mailing or what did they mention it on LinkedIn, where I just reach out to top executives and top companies, and we're not talking small companies, top companies, send them a LinkedIn request. I had a premium LinkedIn subscription for that bit, send them a LinkedIn request, put in the comments what I'm looking for. The reality is that maybe just 10%, because I did it to about like 50 people,
Oh.
maybe 10% will respond. And that's what you need to be prepared for. You need to be prepared for rejection. Just know that for sure. Be prepared for rejection, but let the rejection fuel your desire. That yes, this has happened, but let it fuel your desire. So that's you. If you need to do what you need to do, you just need to do what you need to do it with desire from within you. So, like I was saying, reached out to over 50 top executives in different companies, and a couple of them reached out, a couple of them responded, and there you have it: building relationships, connecting with people that you never imagined you could connect to. So don't limit yourself to say, oh, I'm an introvert, or I don't know how to relate with people, I don't want to disturb people. Do what you need to do, because there is obviously reward in it. And also, like I mentioned, be prepared for rejection, because rejection is it's just really part of career. And I think finally, be humble. That's one of the most important things also. No matter if you are the best in class or you are the only person that does what you do in your company, be humble, because you were also at a certain stage in your career in the lower level of the chain. So you need to always realize that everything is based on progression, and appreciate the level that you're in, and also be humble in everything that you do. And I think with that comes great benefits. And yeah, I would say that's what I would want to say as final words.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Although while we are talking, someone asked Mr. Temitayo if, in terms of opportunity for an entry level person in cybersecurity, what path would you suggest? Network security engineering or SOC analyst? Should they reach out to you on LinkedIn for that?
Yes, I will advise, because information security is massive. So it depends on what your skill sets are. So please reach out to me on LinkedIn, and we can have a conversation about it.
Yes, 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 I agree because you need to assess what your current skill level is and all of that. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Really great to have you, both of you, sir.